Hello and welcome back to How to DeFi the System, where you can learn everything about decentralized finance and get started on the road to getting a better hold of your finances and getting access to better opportunities to earn returns in the new and evolving decentralized economy on the blockchain network. So today I want to talk about tokenomics and what that is, what that means, some of the interesting things that have come out of revolutions in tokenomics over the past couple months and years, and some of the things to look out for when you're investing in one of the smaller market cap coins, specifically Binance Smart Chain coins. Obviously, a lot of the things that are happening on the Binance Smart Chain are moving to other networks like Matic and in Ether. So let's start with the basics, and we'll move into more complicated topics as they see fit, right? So this is gonna be this is gonna be another podcast one. You just have the beautiful background and my not so beautiful voice. So with that being said, so what is tokenomics? So tokenomics can kind of be broken down into two things. It's oversimplification as always, but in a lot of these things, first the tokenomics is how many tokens, max supply. The price, thus if you're entering on a decentralized exchange, how much liquidity is being added, and that kind of sets the price, So if I put in 100 coins and I put in $100 with those 100 coins and I add that as liquidity, then you can assume that it's going to be about $1 per coin, right? So now when we're talking about supply and market capital and all these things, the market capital is the supply of coins, how many coins there are that exist, and the current price per coin, right? So if I have 100 coins and the price per coin is 10, then the market capital will be 1,000, right? And the reason that I'm saying this now is to go into kind of the first aspect that I want to explain about tokenomics, is that tokenomics are not always well understood when it comes to how much coins are there, how much am I adding to the circulating supply, and thus that becomes the market, right? So if I have a certain amount of coins and I only add 10% into the market, then everybody that wants to buy or sell those coins is buying or selling the 10%, right? And that's dictating the price of the coin. But the value of the market capital is being quantified on the price of that coin multiplied by all of the coins that exist. So the other 90 coins are not liquidated on the market. They don't exist on the market. They're being held in someone's wallet, not being traded, whatever. So that form of hodling, or in the case of when a creator creates that supply and doesn't distribute it, that kind of creates an artificially supported market capital. So to give a good example, there's a coin which I got into and made quite a bit of money, but the person that created the coin only put 0.5%, like 0.5% of the market capital into liquidity on PancakeSwap, on a decentralized exchange. Now, what happens with that sort of case is that you have a abnormally, astronomically, artificially supported market capital. At launch, the market capital was 300 to 400 million, and it is now sitting at around 14 billion. And it's not realistic because the majority of the tokens are not available for buying and selling. And if that amount of supply was available for buying and selling, you simply wouldn't have the same sort of market capital, because the price of the coins would be valued a lot lower, because it'd be easier to get more of them for the amount of demand that is occurring. As you know, if demand is a certain amount but supply is very low, then the price is going to be higher, right? So it's a very simple supply and demand curve. So that's a way of manipulating the supply and demand curve that you need to be aware of, at least. So when you're looking at a new token that you might be getting into, look at their contract on whichever scanner you can, whether it's Etherscan or it's the Binance Smart Chain scan or the the Matic or the Cardano, whatever it is. Look through the Explorer, look at the token, and see how many holders, who are the top holders, how many tokens do they have, You know, it's a little bit harder when you're participating in the launch of a token. And that's why launches and tokens are always a leap of faith. You know, you're investing in something that hasn't come out yet, and you got to be prepared that that's inevitably a higher risk situation, you know? And that brings us into perfectly into the segue for the next important thing to talk about, which is the nature of pre-sales, right? So pre-sales can be very effective, pre-sales can be detrimental. A lot of times coins have pre-saled, and then using similar tactics as I just explained, they artificially hike the price of the token when it's on market by limiting the amount of supply. Now, I see it in my head that there's two things that can happen when you have a pre-sale, right? So you can pre-sale and say you raise $1 million. You can either put that in $1 million, which you raise by selling the tokens at a specific price. You can put the same amount of tokens and that $1 million into liquidity, right? Into the ability for people to buy and sell the tokens. Thus, you put the price at the price which you sold people to pre-sale. The reality is you can't get more money than you raised in pre-sale. And generally, people want to use the pre-sale money for things like marketing, further development, etc. So what happens is you're not going to be spending that money on the liquidity. And what that means is that, you know, say you raised $1 million, you're spending half of it on liquidity and the other half on marketing, dev, what have you, then the price, if not abnormally supported by some sort of supply demand manipulation, is going to be half of what the pre-sale people bought it for. So the reality is either during a pre-sale and subsequent launch of a token, you're either going to have a decrease in price from what people bought at the pre-sale, or what you're going to have is the pre-sale people, the price is going to be listed at a higher price than the pre-sale people had, and the price is going to dump because the pre-sale people are going to have a 2x or a 4x in their investment, and they're not going to see any reason to subsequently hold more risk, so the price will dump. So it becomes a tricky situation where you know, and the DeFi space has tended to shy away from pre-sales nowadays because of the nature, because of the unfortunate economics. It's very hard to find the right balance between spending that money and adding it to liquidity, and how you do so without tanking your own coin. Now, the best way that I would say that you can kind of work between these two options is, you know, if you do a little bit of market manipulation, then what you want to do is, as your coin is basically running up, as it's pumping, you're going to want to slowly sell off tokens from your main wallet and put that money back into marketing. That should be how you raise marketing funds. That way you're slowly increasing the total supply while it's pumping, trying to keep around the same market capital, taking a little bit of money out of your coin to boost its awareness, to boost its market presence. So, you know, that would just be my subtle advisement. You know, always open to comments and anyone else that has better ideas for how you should do it. So I think this is a good way to, there's another way that I see that you could do it. It's a good way to, you know, if we're talking about how to remunerate or grow the project, and that comes into the transactional tax. So that's the second part of tokenomics. If you're not talking about how many tokens, you know, what's the price, you know, how many tokens are and how are they distributed, right? How much is going to the fair launch? Is it 40%, 60%, 80%? Where are the other tokens? Does the team have tokens? How many tokens does the team have? What are they using them for? Do they have a valid reason to have 95% of the supply, or are they just doing it so they can get rich quick? You know, these are the things you have to look out for. And unfortunately in DeFi, because there are so many scams, you never really know whether these people are telling the truth or not. You can only hope that they have the best interests of their own project in mind. Now, that being said, once you get past the tokenomics, layer one, which is how many coins there are, layer two, where are those coins going upon the creation of the token, you know? Is there some reward mechanism that some of the tokens are being kept for? Like what is the reality of that? And then the third is something that's been evolving, especially in the Binance Smart Chain sector, which is transactional tax. So a lot of tokens are putting a transactional tax on their own token, and what ends up happening with that is basically, you know, and we'll just go quickly through the history of it, just to give everybody kind of like an example to see how this evolved. So there were other transactional tax tokens, but let's take a look at one of the ones that got really big, which is SafeMoon. So SafeMoon had transactional tax, which is known as a reflectionary tax. So about half of the transactional tax was turned into liquidity and added to PancakeSwap automatically, and this meant that people could continue to trade. You know, I'm going to look up SafeMoon's liquidity and just take a quick look. So, you know, we can look. The market cap is market cap's currently at 1.7 billion. And there's 65 million in liquidity. So, you know, you kind of know that now, if someone was sitting on a large portion of that, they could only liquidate 65 million of that 1.7 billion, right? Now that's a decently good liquidity, and it should be this high at least for a token that's in the billions. It should be at least in the tens of millions for liquidity, or else it's kind of hard for people to buy and sell the token without like vastly changing the price. So let's go look at the transactional tax again, just to get an idea of. Now they say they have products, a wallet, an exchange. I don't know how useful this is. Okay, so it has reflection, LP acquisition, and burn. So as we said before, they're not giving the percentages here, which is frustrating me. So let's just take a look. SafeMoon transactional tax percentages. So 10% fee. So this is a good idea of tokenomics, right? Total supply, how much they burned, and how much they put in fair launch, right? Okay, so here, 5% is reflection. So 5% reflection means that when someone buys or sells something, the tokens get given back to everybody that holds tokens. Now the rest, so the rest of the 5% fee is turned into liquidity, as I said, which means each time someone buys or sells, there's a little bit more liquidity added to the pool so that people can buy or sell, right? Now, they mentioned about burning, right? So the question is, how do they burn if it's not there in the transactional tax? So what happens is they put 223 trillion tokens out of the 1 quadrillion, you know, around 22.3%, right, of the total supply, and they burned it. And what that means is they sent it to a dead address. It's an address which is impossible to own, and that basically means that those tokens are not in the circulating supply. So that means the new circulating supply is closer to this. It's closer to 777 trillion, right? And what happens is when you redistribute to all the existing holders, this burned wallet becomes one of the existing holders. So 22.3% of that 5% fee on every transaction is being burnt. And that's how you can create, through reflection and through burning originally, a token which burns in every transaction without having a hard code burning into the transaction tax, which isn't really useful because it's not the best from a marketing perspective. So next we're going to go to Secured Moonrat to see how they evolved from that specific tokenomics model and transactional tax model into something a little bit cooler. So the market cap of this is obviously a lot lower. They didn't do as well, but they did do pretty good for a while. And what they did is they created basically a frictionless yield token, where you had 4% like the other one, which is created in liquidity, 2%, which like the other one has reflection, and instead of, they had 4% of every transaction was taken and redistributed into a pool for all of the holders to gain when if they hold a certain percentage of the market capital. So it's important to kind of get that this means that you're not just getting the token that they have, which may or may not be volatile, but you're getting access to withdraw a lot less volatile of a token. And those withdrawals for secured Moonrat are bi-weekly. Are weekly. So just to give you an idea, you know, tokenomics is evolving. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. You could put in a dev tax. You could put in a marketing tax. You could put in a mixture of all of these. You could put in something which buys back your token and burns it so that the supply is always going down. But generally, people want to see a tax, especially now. They want to see a tax in one of these coins that benefits them. So depending on your use case, you need to think about that. Depending on the use case of the token that you're investing in, you need to think about that. And that's just been, you know, as brief as I can make it, a pretty deep dive on tokenomics to give you guys an example, to give you guys an idea what to look out for. You know, other things to look out for is if, you know, actually I'll go into that more in another video. You know, DeFi scams, what to look out for. So stay tuned for that one. But for now, thank you for your time. Hope you've learned something. Hope you've enjoyed the content. And if you want, share, like, comment, and subscribe.